you ever open your front door and find 3 cop cars, an HOA president screaming at your porch, and your wife, stone cold, arms crossed, daring anyone to make a move? Yeah, me neither. At least, not until that Saturday. We just moved into what was supposed to be a peaceful neighborhood after years of chaos. We thought we were getting a fresh start, but peace? That was never in the cards, not with a woman like Karen running the HOA like it was her personal kingdom. She banged on our door like it owed her money, demanding my wife answer immediately. When she didn't, she called the cops, said my wife was suspicious, said she was refusing lawful contact. The officers came, and that's when everything changed. Karen didn't know my wife had just been sworn in as the new police chief. And what happened next? You'll want to hear every second. When we bought the house, my wife and I were just hoping to settle into something quieter. She'd just taken the job after 20 years on the force, moved up the ranks, earned every stripe, and finally made chief. The department hadn't even made the announcement public yet. They wanted to do it big, press, interviews, the works. So for now we were keeping things low-key, which unfortunately didn't sit well with everyone. From the moment the moving truck pulled in, we felt eyes on us. Not the friendly kind either. More like, who are these outsiders kind of stare. On day 1, we got a letter on the door from the HOA, written in bold red pen. Reminder: all yard decor must be approved. Please remove the garden gnome immediately. We didn't even have a gnome. That's when we learned about Karen. Her real name was Marcia, but even the neighbors who liked her called her Karen behind her back. She was president of the HOA for 8 years, ran every meeting like a courtroom, and treated the neighborhood like she owned it. Her house was directly across from ours, perfect angle to keep tabs on everything we did. And it didn't take long before the petty harassment started. First, it was about our trash bins. I'd roll them to the curb the night before pickup, same as anyone else. She left a note taped to the lid, Violation 3B, bins must not be visible before 7 a.m. Then it was the car. My wife's cruiser, unmarked, just blacked out, was parked in the driveway. No commercial vehicles allowed overnight, the notice said. She tried fining us, twice. I tried reasoning with her, calmly even introduced myself. We're just settling in, I told her, not trying to cause trouble. But she wasn't having it. Her eyes scanned me like I was trespassing on her land. Everyone follows the rules here, she said. No exceptions, especially newcomers. So we started keeping to ourselves. We didn't want drama, we didn't want trouble. But the more we stayed quiet, the more she seemed determined to provoke something. Then came the morning everything snapped. It was a Saturday. I'd gone to grab coffee, left my wife home alone. She was working on case files, deep in thought with her earbuds in. Karen decided this was the perfect time to come knocking. Not once, not twice, but 10 times. My wife didn't answer. She was busy. Figured if it was important, someone would call. Instead, Karen stormed back across the street, pulled out her phone, and called the police. The 911 call I'd later hear was absurd. There's a woman inside refusing to answer the door. She's hostile. I don't feel safe. She made it sound like my wife was some dangerous recluse barricading herself in. 3 squad cars rolled up within 10 minutes, lights flashing, officers stepping out with hands near their belts, ready for anything. That's when I pulled into the driveway. I saw them all. Karen standing triumphantly at the edge of the lawn, arms folded like she'd just orchestrated a takedown. The officers halfway to the porch, and my wife finally at the door, cracking it open like a bomb was about to go off. The moment they saw her badge on her hip, the tension shifted. But what happened next wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was the beginning of something way bigger. Something that Karen had no idea she was walking into. The air was thick with tension when I stepped out of the truck. At first I thought there'd been a robbery or something serious. But then I saw her. Karen, standing smug as ever on the sidewalk with her arms crossed and a look on her face like she'd just won a neighborhood war. The officers, all 3 of them, were standing cautiously near the front steps, eyes flicking between her and my wife. My wife had cracked open the door just enough to be seen, badge clipped to her waistband, calm as ever, but with that same expression I'd seen back when she interrogated suspects, half patient, half deadly serious. She was already sizing up the situation before anyone had even spoken. I got out of the truck and jogged over, waving a hand. "Hey, what's going on here?" One of the younger officers turned to me and said, "We got a call about a possible domestic disturbance. Suspect refusing contact." I looked from him to Karen, who was nodding vigorously, as if that was exactly what she wanted on record. "She was deliberately ignoring me," she said. "That's suspicious behavior." She wouldn't even open the door when I knocked politely. Politely? I'd seen her fists hammer the door like a battering ram. She probably dinted the frame. And my wife stepped fully out of the doorway. She didn't raise her voice, didn't flash her badge, just calmly said, "There's no disturbance here. I was inside, working, with earbuds in. I didn't hear anyone until the third time. When I did hear—" I chose not to answer. I'm not required to open the door just because someone is banging on. The lead officer, an older guy with salt and pepper hair, seemed to recognize her face. His posture shifted. "Ma'am, can I get your name?" She pulled her badge gently from her hip and held it up with both hands. "Chief Amanda Reyes, just sworn in last week. Was planning on meeting the team Monday morning. Looks like you came to me first." The silence that followed was almost comical. The young officer's jaw practically hit the grass. The lead one blinked twice, then nodded and muttered, "Understood, Chief." Just like that, the whole dynamic changed. They relaxed, even took a step back. But Karen? Karen didn't budge. "Wait, what? She can't be a cop. She ignored an HOA president's official request. That's obstruction. Now let me tell you something. My wife is a composed woman, but even she couldn't stop the smirk that crept across her face. "That's not a crime, ma'am," she replied. "Not even close. You can knock. I can choose not to answer. That's how doors and rights work." Karen's eyes widened. She turned to the officers like she was still trying to win them over. "You don't understand. She's been intentionally difficult since moving in. She leaves her bins out, parks strange vehicles. She's defiant." The lead officer held up a hand. "This is a civil matter, not criminal, and unless there's an actual threat or emergency, we're not going to escalate this." That didn't sit well with Karen. Not one bit. Her lips twisted into a sneer, and for a second I saw something mean flash behind her eyes. This wasn't just about trash bins or doors anymore. She felt exposed, powerless, and some people don't take that lightly. The officers apologized, nodded at Amanda respectfully, and left without incident, but as their cars rolled away, Karen lingered on the sidewalk, staring us down like she'd just been betrayed by the system. And that's when she hissed something that chilled me. "This isn't over." She turned on her heel and marched back to her house, her heels stabbing the concrete like knives. We hoped that would be the end of it, that maybe being embarrassed in front of actual police would make her back off, but people like Karen don't back off. They regroup and retaliate. 2 days later, an official HOA violation showed up in our mailbox. Failure to cooperate with community leadership. A fine. $150.00. And that was just the start. Suddenly our grass was too long, even though I'd just mowed it. Then it was the porch light being too bright. My wife's cruiser was a public safety concern. Every week brought another complaint. Another fine, another piece of red-stamped rage shoved in our mailbox. It was like she'd made us her personal vendetta. We debated fighting back. We had proof the fines were made up, photos, video. Even neighbors started whispering to us that Karen was going too far. One guy named Dennis said she fined him for leaving a bike on his porch for 5 minutes. But nobody challenged her outright. She was too well entrenched, had her little army of board members and bylaws at the ready. But then, something shifted. One night my wife came home and found a typed letter taped to the front door. No envelope, just bold all-caps words. "You don't belong here. Go back to where you came from." There were no fingerprints, no camera footage, nothing definitive to tie it to Karen. But we knew, and that's when my wife decided she wasn't going to wait for this to escalate further. She was going to play the game Karen was playing, but smarter, legally, strategically. Because if Karen wanted a war, she was about to get one. And this time she wasn't going to like the rules. That night, after we peeled that disgusting letter off our front door, Amanda didn't say much. She just sat at the kitchen table with a mug of tea, staring at it like it was a puzzle to solve. I could tell she was cycling through a dozen thoughts at once, part anger, part strategy. She'd handled murder cases, hostage situations, high-risk raids. But this was personal. And the hardest battles to fight are the ones you can't charge into wearing a vest and carrying a warrant. The next morning she woke up early and drove to the precinct. Not in her cruiser, not in uniform, just in plain clothes, quiet, focused. She spent the entire day there making calls, pulling records, cross-referencing names. She wasn't just poking around for evidence. She was building a file, and not just on the letter, on Karen herself. Turns out, Karen wasn't just a nightmare to us. She had a history. Complaint after complaint had been filed by neighbors over the last 5 years, false code violations, harassment, even a restraining order attempt from a single mom on the other end of the street, though it never stuck because the board always swept it under the rug. Karen had power, and she used it to wear people down. But here's the thing, Amanda knew how to dig deeper. She found emails. Internal HOA meeting notes, unfiled fines, financial reports that didn't add up. A pattern. Karen wasn't just using the HOA as a weapon, she was exploiting it, illegally. And that's when Amanda called in someone she trusted, a city inspector. Not someone from Karen's little web, but an outside official who owed Amanda a favor and took one look at the mess and said, "This is gonna be big." That weekend, Amanda asked me to help set up a new camera system. Full perimeter, motion-activated, cloud storage. Karen wanted to play dirty. We were ready. We kept our distance during the week, stayed quiet, followed the rules to the letter. Karen must have sensed something was shifting, because she got even more aggressive. She left another HOA citation on our doorstep, this one in bold red marker. Fix her failure to maintain neighborly conduct. It wasn't even a real rule, just a phrase she probably made up after watching one too many daytime court shows. Amanda just smiled when she read it. "That'll look good in the report," she said. But then, just when we thought we had the upper hand, Karen escalated. It was around 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I heard a thud outside, near the porch. At first, I thought it was an animal, but when I looked out the window, I saw a figure ducking low in our yard. Hood up, something in their hands. My blood ran cold. I woke Amanda immediately, and we pulled up the camera feed. There it was, Karen, in the middle of the night, creeping through our flower bed with a small bag. She reached our front steps and sprinkled something out of it across the concrete. Then she stepped back, looked around, and vanished. Amanda didn't hesitate. She grabbed her badge, her phone, and within 10 minutes 2 squad cars were outside. This time Amanda wasn't waiting inside. She met them at the door, handed them the footage, and pointed them directly to Karen's address. They knocked once, then twice, and on the third knock Karen opened the door in a bathrobe, like she hadn't just been prowling through someone else's yard. She tried to act confused, tried to deny it, but Amanda was already holding up a tablet with the freeze frame, her face half turned, eyes wide, bag in hand, caught red-handed. Karen stuttered. I was just out walking. I thought I heard something. I was checking for safety." Amanda cut her off. "You trespassed, you tampered with my property, and you did it under the cover of darkness with malicious intent." Karen's smugness began to crack. "You can't prove that. I was just trying to—" Amanda looked at the officers. "Place her under arrest." Now let me tell you, seeing the expression on Karen's face when those cuffs clicked behind her back, that was something I will never forget. But it wasn't over yet. At the station, Amanda handed over her entire file to the city attorney. Everything: emails, fines, footage, financial inconsistencies. And the city? They didn't just take it seriously, they launched a full investigation into the HOA. The very next week, a city compliance officer showed up with a clipboard, knocking on every door in the neighborhood. Karen's board cronies started panicking. Some even flipped. Suddenly very cooperative when asked about how the fines were issued and who really approved them, the story started to unravel, fast. And while all this was happening, something even more unexpected occurred. Our neighbors started coming out of the shadows. First it was Dennis, the guy with the porch bike, then a retired couple who said Karen threatened to sue them over a garden hose, then a young mom, tears in her eyes, thanking us for finally standing up to her. It was like the whole neighborhood had been under a spell, and now the curse was breaking. But just when we thought the battle was won, we got a letter, not from Karen this time, but from her lawyer. And what was inside that envelope was worse than we imagined. The envelope was thick, too thick for a simple notice. It was hand-delivered to our mailbox by someone we didn't recognize, wearing a navy blazer and mirrored sunglasses. No return address, no name, just our street number scrawled in black ink. That alone was enough to raise red flags. Amanda opened it while I watched, standing behind her in the kitchen, the soft hum of the fridge the only sound between us. Inside, a cease and desist letter, pages of legal jargon accusing us of harassment, intimidation, defamation, and abuse of positional power. It accused Amanda of leveraging her role as police chief to retaliate against a concerned citizen and community leader. The letter went on for 6 pages, listing instances of behavior that were either fabricated or grossly twisted from the truth. But that wasn't the worst part. They were threatening to sue us for $250,000, 0 cents. My stomach dropped. I glanced at Amanda, expecting rage or maybe fear, but what I saw instead was something colder: determination. She reread the pages carefully, slowly. No blinking, no emotion. Then she set them down and said, "She's scared." That was the moment I understood just how much Karen had to lose. You see people like her. They operate on fear and intimidation. They bully and bluff their way into power, hoping no one ever pushes back. But when someone does, especially someone with the training, the badge, and now the evidence, they panic. And when people panic, they make mistakes. Amanda didn't just ignore the threat. She turned it around. She contacted the city's legal department and passed the letter straight to them. Within 24 hours, they launched an internal ethics probe into Karen's lawyer, who it turned out had a reputation for representing shady HOAs. A few calls later, Amanda discovered he wasn't even licensed in our county. Karen's entire legal front started crumbling. But Karen? She didn't stop. She doubled down, started planting rumors through the neighborhood Facebook group. Stuff like Amanda had bullied the HOA board into silence, that I had threatened Karen's house with surveillance drones, and that we were planning to have her arrested just for being a strong woman. You can imagine how fast the comments turned into a circus. And that's when Amanda made her boldest move yet. She called an emergency community meeting. The board tried to shut it down, but by then most of the neighborhood had had enough. People wanted answers. They were tired of the secrecy, the fines, the petty rules, the fear. Amanda showed up not in uniform, not with an escort, but in jeans and a black t-shirt, just like any other neighbor. But her presence, it hit like thunder. She brought documentation, dozens of printed violation slips, unlawfully issued, screenshots of Karen's manipulative HOA group messages, financial records showing misused dues, money being funneled into events that never happened, and maintenance that no one ever saw. And when Amanda finally showed the freeze frame of Karen creeping across our porch in the dead of night with that bag of whatever it was, the room went silent. Karen didn't even show up. She sent one of her bored lackeys, an older man named Phil who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and when Amanda asked point blank, "Is this the leadership you want controlling your homes, your families, and your futures?" the applause from the room was real, loud, long. And right then a neighbor stood up. Dennis. He walked to the front, turned to face everyone and said, "I motion to call for a vote of no confidence in the HOA president." Cheers followed, actual cheers. The board, flustered and confused, tried to object, but it was too late. A vote was held, right then, right there. Over 90% voted to remove Karen immediately. She was out. We walked home that night under quiet skies, porch lights blinking gently, neighbors nodding in solidarity. For the first time since we moved in, the street felt like home. But if you think that's where the story ends, you'd be wrong. Because the next morning, Amanda checked our security footage, and at exactly 4:37 a.m., a figure in a hooded sweatshirt walked right up to our garage, took out a pocket knife and slashed our tire. They didn't even try to hide it. Same build, same posture. Karen, out of office but not out of war. And this time she wasn't hiding behind fines or board members. She was coming for us directly. The sound of that tire hissing flat echoed in my head long after we played the footage. Amanda sat at her desk, elbows on her knees, staring at the screen in silence. No words. Just that slow, heavy breath she gets when the line between professional and personal starts to blur. We'd dealt with threats before, anonymous letters, fines, legal nonsense, but this was deliberate, physical, and frankly, stupid, because Karen had just crossed the line into criminal territory. Again. Amanda leaned back and whispered, "She's unraveling." And she was right. Within 48 hours, Amanda filed an official police report, this time not as the chief, but as a citizen. It was important to draw that line. She didn't want special treatment. She wanted the system to work the way it was supposed to, for everyone. Which is exactly why she handed the case to an independent investigator from outside the precinct. No favors, no inside angles, just clean professional justice. Karen must have thought that with her title stripped she could go full rogue, but what she didn't understand was that Amanda was always 10 steps ahead. That camera footage, it was crystal clear. Clear enough that when the detective interviewed Karen 2 days later, she folded like wet cardboard. She claimed she was just walking her dog, even though there was no dog, claimed the tire must have already been flat, claimed the knife was a utility tool for gardening. Then, she lawyered up again. But by then it was too late. The city issued a restraining order. Karen was banned from setting foot within 100 feet of our property. She was charged with criminal mischief, trespassing, and destruction of property. Not enough for jail time, but enough for a heavy fine and a permanent record. The part that stung her the most, though? The neighbors knew. 4 of them. Dennis put up security lights. The young mom down the block started her own neighborhood Facebook group, one not controlled by Karen or her cronies. People started inviting us to cookouts. We even got a welcome pie from the couple next door. It was like Karen's fall from power finally gave the whole block room to breathe. And Amanda? She finally stepped into her role publicly. The department made the announcement official. The papers ran a piece titled, "New Police Chief Cleans Up More Than Crime." The city council invited her to speak about HOA corruption and community rights. She even sat down with a local news anchor for a segment called "When Neighborhood Power Goes Too Far." But you know what stuck with me most? One quiet evening, maybe 2 months later, Amanda and I were sitting on the back patio. The air was still, calm, the way we always hoped it would be. She turned to me and said, "It's crazy, right? All this started because I didn't open a door." I laughed, but only for a second, because she wasn't really joking. That's what gets me. With one ignored knock, one petty woman, and suddenly we're in the middle of neighborhood warfare. But here's what I've learned. Silence is not always surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes the quietest people hold the loudest power. You just have to wait for the right moment to use it. And Karen? She's still around, quiet now, keeping to herself. I catch her sometimes through the curtains, watching our yard like it owes her something. But she doesn't knock anymore. She knows better. And I wonder if someone knocked on her door now, Would she answer? Or would she stay silent, hoping the past never shows up on her porch again? Because justice? It always finds the door.